Hello, I'm Nisa Kessler, the Teen Services Librarian at the Petoskey District Library, and it's coming to an end, 2020, woo woo, finally. So I thought, what better way to celebrate the end of the year than talk about some of our favorite books? So this week I'm going to be talking about my favorite graphic novels that came out this year, and if you haven't read them, you should, because they're good. First one we're going to talk about is Kent State. So most of us know the history of what happened at Kent State in May of 1970, where the National Guard opened fire and killed 4 students who were protesting the Vietnam War. This book is amazing because he did so much research. You really get to know all the people involved. You get to know those 4 students who were killed, and it just gives it that much more emotional impact. Also, you get to know some of those National Guardsmen, and you get to understand that, they weren't necessarily the villains in the story either. They were very poorly trained. They were living in poor conditions. They were exhausted, and they were used by the governor of Ohio, who was very loyal to Richard Nixon. So this book is illustrated in black and white, which normally is not my cup of tea, but it really works for the story. So I highly recommend Kent State. Very good. The next one I want to talk about is The Magic Fish. I love this book. First of all, it's a book about communication, which I am always, I have a degree in communication. It's very important to me. So the mom in this story is a refugee from Vietnam. She came to the United States, didn't know the language, learned it, feels very much like the whole fish out of water kind of story, where her past is in one language and her present is in another, and it's very confusing for her. And her son is born, raised here in the United States. So they have some communication troubles. And the way that they communicate with each other is so beautiful. They use fairy tales, which I love. I love that so much. And he struggles in particular to communicate with his mother the fact that he is gay. And so he uses the fairy tales to share that truth with her. And she uses fairy tales to share with him what it's been like for her as a refugee and that whole experience. So I love this book so much. I highly recommend it. The Magic Fish. Oh, Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler, sci-fi writer extraordinaire, amazing writer. She wrote the book Parable of the Sower back in, I think it was 1993, so it was a while ago. So the story is set in 2024, which for us is not that far down the road, but when she wrote it, it was, 30 years down the road. So basically, it's dystopian. But it's not your typical dystopia. It's not post-apocalyptic in the sense that there was not a big war that caused the collapse of society. What causes the collapse of society in this book is scarcity of resources and wage slavery. So, and the main character is named Lauren, and she lives in a gated community with her family. She's 15. And they're safe in this gated community from all the violence that surrounds them. And her dad is a preacher, but she's coming up with her own philosophy, her own religion, if you will, her own way of looking at God. Then the safety of her community is breached. Her family is killed, and she's got to find a way to survive. So she starts heading north, and she starts spreading her word, her philosophy called Earthseed, and it is so good. Again, I love science fiction, and I've loved Octavia Butler for years because her science fiction, it makes you think. Big thinkers there. So pick up Parable of the Sower. It's very good stuff. So I have been working this year and the previous year on building our collection of Indigenous graphic novels. So some of the ones that came in this year that I wanted to share with you. First, Moonshot. This is volume 2. We do have volume 1 and volume 3, I believe. We got them all at the same time. But Moonshot is a collection of comics by Indigenous creators. And it is published by an Inuit company called Inhabit Education Books. And so each story is, I mean, the artwork differs from story to story, right? But they're all so good. They are so good. Oh, love it so much. There's science fiction in here. There's realistic fiction. There's historical fiction. There's something for everyone. So I highly recommend picking up Moonshot. Next is another compilation called Sovereign Traces. This is volume 2 of Sovereign Traces. It's called Relational Constellation, and it focuses on the many meanings and facets of love. Again, it's different Indigenous creators in one book, so you'll see different art forms in here, you know, different stories, different creators. Ooh. So, but they're all amazing. So I highly, highly recommend this compilation. And then finally, this one, I loved it so much. It's called 7 Generations. It's a Plains Cree saga, and it's a saga of one particular Plains Cree family, starting in the early 1800s all the way through the present day. Has really amazing art, and it is written by David Robertson, who is a Cree First Nations person in Canada. And it goes through all of the things that they've gone through these generations. So there's smallpox, there's the residential schools, you know, there's the reservations. So I highly, highly recommend 7 Generations. It's a good look into the history of just one family, but it's really heart-wrenching, really good. And it shows that connection to the ancestors. That is so, so important. And also a connection to the future. So, 7 Generations, highly recommended. So, as you may have noticed, I really, really like graphic novels. I think they're fantastic. All of these graphic novels are available at the Petoskey District Library, and they come highly recommended. And if you've read those and you just want something else to read, come see me at the desk and we will talk about it and find you the perfect book. So until next week, when we talk about nonfiction, I'm going to sign off and say, see you later.